Welcome, everyone, to Art Battle in Genoa. We are just about to start round number 1. We have 12 absolutely amazing artists lined up for you today, and we will be starting with our first 6 in round number 1 in just a few minutes. These artists will have 20 minutes only on the clock to go from blank canvas to completed work right in front of your eyes, and you, the audience, will vote for which artists you think are best. Get registered to vote at artbattle.com/AB2438, and you can also participate in the auction there. That's right. All of these pieces are available for sale at that silent auction in that same link. Round number 1 coming up with our first 6 artists in just a few minutes.
Come hobby nel 2018 ho visto un video su Art Battle a New York, ho scritto subito all'azienda in Canada e ho preso i diritti per iniziare Art Battle in Italia. Non mi dilungo in ciance, ne abbiamo fatte 15 in vari posti, questa è la 15ª, fa parte del secondo torneo. Voglio veramente ringraziare chi è venuto questa sera, perché ogni infrasettimanale, insomma, a Genova non è facile tirar fuori le persone. Allora, bando alle ciance, tanto vorrei ringraziare lo Spazio Luzzati per questo meraviglioso posto, lo staff che da sempre mi segue dall'inizio, il nostro DJ Enigma Auditore che mi sopporta da 15 battaglie, il nostro sponsor De Lucchi Edoardo che questa sera è qui con noi, che mi ha dato una grande mano con tele e colori, perché il produttore mette a disposizione tutto, gli artisti vengono gratis e si fanno conoscere anche in live streaming, perché siamo in live streaming. Artisti, 12 artisti, 3 round, cosa vuol dire? Primo round 6, il pubblico vota, secondo round gli altri 6, il pubblico vota, alla fine del secondo round dal Canada mi dicono chi sono i 4 finalisti. Cambia la tela, una 60x80, quindi più grande di questa. Gli artisti si risfidano in 20 minuti con un countdown, esce un vincitore. Cosa vince questo vincitore? Vince intanto che è vincitore e poi parteciperà alla grande finale, dove ci saranno 12 vincitori delle 12 gare. A questo punto direi iniziamo, vi presento gli artisti che questa sera parteciperanno al primo round, non sono in ordine di apparizione ma in ordine di cerchio. Allora, al 1-1, al cavalletto numero 1, Montzoros, facciamo un applauso finale poi tutto alla fine, così scorriamo veloce e iniziamo. Montzoros Diana Rosalia, nata in Grecia, alza la mano, e lei? Nata in Grecia, ha studiato ceramica, scultura e pittura, le piace esplorare il corpo femminile, ama gli alberi, il mare e la vita dell'amore e della natura sono la sua arte. Vicino a lei, Cristian Boretto, per la prima volta in Art Battle, è un artista autodidatta e non ha detto niente perché vuole lasciarvi la sorpresa di conoscerlo. Subito dopo Daniela Vercelli, l'arte di Daniela è strati di colore, arte astratta, ognuno ci vede un po' quello che vuole, la bellezza dell'arte è anche questa, che uno ci vede un cavallo, un altro invece ci vede un elefante o l'amore, quindi lei è un punto interrogativo ma fa sempre cose meravigliose. Daniela Vercelli. Vicino a Daniela abbiamo Luca Siri. Luca Siri è un personaggio molto particolare, fa secondo me delle cose meravigliose come tutti gli altri, ama esibirsi dal vivo, infatti il 19 gennaio ha partecipato per la prima volta, anche se c'erano altri iscritti l'ho ripreso perché aveva veramente voglia di farsi conoscere. Lavora su tela ma anche su scultura con argilla, marmo e legno. Vicino a lui Giulia Giardino. Giulia Giardino, studentessa di Accademia Albertina di Belle Arti di Torino e alla ricerca di stimoli creativi. Quindi vediamo se riusciamo noi a dargli anche degli stimoli creativi. Questa battaglia è una battaglia soprattutto con se stessi, perché pitturare in 20 minuti, io dipingo, vi assicuro che non è per niente facile. Ultimo ma non per importanza, assolutamente, Ludovica Catalano. Segue un espressionismo tedesco, usa materiali misti e colori pop misti. Le piace disegnare, dipingere e fotografare ed è qui per condividere con voi la sua arte. Ragazzi, facciamo un enorme applauso a questi ragazzi perché vi assicuro, normalmente noi artisti dipingiamo per gli affari nostri, senza pubblico, quindi non è facile dipingere. Vi chiedo una cosa importante, perché loro hanno bisogno anche del vostro calore. Invece che stare lì fermi, eccetera, in Canada si dice a slow tornado, che vuol dire un tornado lento. Sarebbe molto bello che voi veniste giù e senza andare nelle parti storiche, abbiamo messo apposta qui, girare un pochettino intorno, perché chi è lì Ludovica non la vede, quindi se riuscite a girare anche un pochino intorno qui, ma potete farlo anche lì, vedete voi. Diamo inizio alla battaglia, io direi facciamo un countdown dal 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, al battle, via!
We have just begun our first round of Art Battle in Genoa today. We have our first 6 artists up at the easels, and they have 20 minutes only on the clock to go from blank canvas to incredible masterpiece right in front of your eyes. And looks like we are off to a great start at easel number 1. We have Diana Rosalia Montzoros, and we have these beautiful curving lines happening on the canvas in this bright blue already. I'm thinking maybe we could potentially end up with a profile portrait there. Just early seconds guessing there. And here we are with Christian Boretto, and looks like Christian has his piece in a landscape orientation and has got some paper towel bracing his piece, which is very interesting. But we can see that he's got a little bit of sketch going down already. We can see some of his pencil lines, and now he's adding some blue into the mix as well. Moving over to Daniela Vercelli. And Daniela has taped off the edges of her canvas, so hopefully we're going to get some really nice clean lines there, and potentially getting the opportunity to see some really great crispy line work there. In our first 2 minutes of competition here, voting, you can register to vote at artbattle.com/AB2438. Here we are with Luca Siri, who has painted in Art Battle before. This is his second month in a row competing, and I believe that he was a finalist last time. And we're seeing this gorgeous swath of yellow being applied to the canvas. We have more of this kind of golden hue happening at the bottom of the canvas. And we're starting to see potentially a figure, maybe a boat starting to emerge. Luca always does work that's very narrative and has a little bit of whimsy within it. So looking forward to seeing how that evolves. And here we are with Giulia, and Giulia is really laying down a lot of pigment. And we are getting quite a lot of paint on the canvas right now from this artist. Lots of wet pouring technique happening here, and I think that we're definitely headed in an abstract direction that's going to be very texturally focused. We can see that the artist is literally shaking the paint out of the cups right onto that canvas there. And here we are back with Diana, and it looks like I was correct and that we are getting some sort of profile painting, but within that we're also getting a figure as well. So this is very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a composition quite like this before, where we have a sitting figure that is actually being painted within the portrait. So very interesting technique here from Diana already. Back with Christian here and our landscape. That is not a landscape at all. I actually think that Christian is painting some cars here. I'm starting to recognize the outline of the body of a car, and he is filling it in with that beautiful bright cyan color. And over here with Ludovica, and we're getting lots of great textural components there from her, and she says that she is very involved in creating in the abstract German expressionism style, and we're definitely seeing that intensity of application here. Lots of textural focus. We're getting some washes up in the top of the canvas to kind of soften things up a little bit, and then getting lots of focus and strength and saturation of color in the bottom. Painting very rapidly and starting to bring some of those warmer colors into the top of the canvas as well. Back over with Luca. And Luca has now turned this piece into a landscape painting where we have definitely water as the dominant feature, but the water is still very yellow and is being touched by the golden light of that sun. And then we're getting these rock formations or pieces of land in this kind of brown golden color. And we're starting to get the revelation of what the story is up front. And I think that it actually is a mermaid that is going in for a kiss with a person that's in the boat. Very cool. And we're seeing the ripples being communicated around the boat and also around the tail of our mermaid there, showing that it's been submerged. Luca's doing a really great job getting all of his bases covered. Back with Giulia here, and we have this very softly blended, abstracted space right now with a focus of a darker circle in the center of the canvas. So an interesting technique here, we have very washy application that's really softening up that brown throughout the background of the canvas. And previously, we have seen work from Giulia that leans a little bit more into the landscape space. So I'm wondering whether or not this piece is going to be turning into that kind of thing, or if we're going to be moving forward with a figure. I'm seeing some angular line work happening here and wondering whether or not this orb that we have in the center of the canvas is going to potentially turn into a head for a figure, or if it's going to be perhaps some other kind of focal point, or if we're going to be leaning completely into the abstract here. Getting these green lines kind of coming out of that circle and bouncing almost off of the side of the canvas there. Moving back over to Diana. Oh, wait. No, we are with Daniela here, who is creating this super textural abstract piece with lots of pour painting. So we're seeing that Daniela is watering down her paint a little bit just to increase the flow. And looking at the jug of clear liquid that she has sitting on her table right now, I'm thinking that that is probably what we call a flow medium. And flow medium is something that allows the paint to flow better onto the canvas. And so that's a really great technique as she's doing this pour painting, because we're getting that paint creating a good level, a good high opacity, but also being able to spread very easily. Back over with Diana here. And the way that this composition is coming together is just so stunning to me. We're really getting this just gorgeousness. We're just really getting this gorgeousness of these color balances here. We have this really warm, bright yellow that is leaning into that kind of orange warm space. And then that's being juxtaposed with this gorgeous cyan color. Back over with Christian now. And Christian's car is definitely coming to life. We have the accent color of his tail light there with the red swipe is just so nice. And it is also communicating that kind of sense of direction and movement, being that he's just swiped it just that little bit, moving into the back of the canvas there, and just really helping to establish that directionality. We are now at our halfway mark of round number 1 of Art Battle in Genoa, and voting is now open at artbattle.com/AB2438. The top 2 artists, as voted by the audience, will move forward into the 3rd and final round and will join our top painters from our next qualifying round. But you can choose only one in each round. So think about which piece is communicating the best to you, which do you think is the most skillful execution of painting, but also whose performance are you enjoying the most and who you would welcome seeing again in the final, because they will be taking on a new canvas. Christian working into the tires here, and a good technique that he's using, he's putting white directly over top of that wet black paint and blending it directly on the canvas to get that gray and also to establish some highlights within the tires there. And now we can see that Christian is starting to go into his background, using that gray to kind of set everything else off. Over with Ludovica here, and we're definitely getting some really interesting work happening. Or actually, I think that this may be Daniela. Getting some really interesting textural components happening here, and we can also see that she is working her palette knife into the paint and starting to create these almost vegetative pieces. Really emphasizing that texture there. Back with Luca here. And Luca's piece is really coming together so gorgeously. I'm really enjoying the monochrome palette here with all of these different yellows. We have kind of the cooler yellow happening in the sky, that yellow is leaning a little bit more into that pure lemon yellow space. And then we have these gorgeous warm browns that are very golden, but are still living within that same color family. And then we have more of an orange being expressed in the water. And this piece is continuing to evolve. We now have some sort of textural object that is starting to climb forth from the bottom corner of the canvas, and we're getting little bits of blue being introduced into the edges of that. Very interesting composition so far. And still looking quite abstract with our central focus of lines here with the orb and then our 2 diagonal lines coming off of it. So very interesting. I'm wondering whether or not this piece is going to stay totally abstract. And we are entering into our final 5 minutes of the round. These artists have used up their first 3/4 of this timed round and are now entering the finishing phases and adding their finishing touches, honing their compositions, potentially adding in any last exciting elements. And we can see that Ludovica here has really just created this really wonderfully textural piece with all of these different colors competing and blending into each other at the same time. There's some really wonderful striations happening within those bodies of color, almost looking like rivers in the way that she's poured them. Back with Diana here. And Diana is just continuing to really finish up this piece. A strong narrative approach here, and definitely some surrealist elements being added in as well. really thoughtful composition, and one that I'm gazing at, and it's totally continuing to make me think and become just very engaging, almost spiritual piece. I'm really enjoying the way that Diana is having these yellow lines coming off of the figure and radiating outward, but being stopped still by the lines of the profile that she's established. That's a really wonderful way to harmonize this piece within the larger profile portrait. Moving over to Christian now. And we can see that Christian has added in some taillights into the secondary cars that he has in the background. And something that I'm really enjoying about this piece is that the cars in the background are so super abstracted, but we definitely still are understanding what they are. And over with Daniela, and we have gotten that super satisfying tape pull, and just look at the gorgeous, crisp lines that has revealed. Over with Luca here, and Luca is just continuing to find the details in this piece and just adding balancing compositional elements. We have the tree leaning over, just kind of interacting with the sun here a little bit. And then on the opposite side, Luca is now adding in these orange clouds to balance that moment. And I love the way that Luca is creating these elements of balance within the composition, but not in a way that is overly symmetrical. So we're still getting some very interesting points that feel unexpected. We have 2 minutes remaining. 2 minutes remaining in our first round of Art Battle Genoa. And a huge congratulations to these artists. It takes a lot of courage and creativity to step up to the easel this way. And we can actually see that Luca has signed his piece already, which is such a good sign. It means that Luca is feeling that this piece is completed and is now just really taking his time, adding in those finishing details, taking advantage of the final 60 seconds or so that are remaining in the round. And I'm wondering whether or not this is potentially a lamp or maybe a metal sculpture. It's definitely creating that point of focus. We're into our final minute now. Checking out Ludovica's piece here, and it actually looks like this piece is drying quite well, which is very, very interesting, given the super heavy application here. Oh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pennelli in aria! Complimenti ragazzi, allora ci siamo, i primi 20 minuti sono passati, siamo ancora vivi, nessuno è colorato con macchie di verde in faccia, di punk, no, ci siamo. Bene, adesso diamo il tempo a noi di cambiare le tele, cambiare i nomi, non andate via perché non avrebbe senso venire qua. Vado via al primo round che ha vinto Bo. Quindi adesso gli artisti raccoglieranno i loro strumenti di pittura Voi intanto votate e noi cambieremo le tele per il prossimo round, perché ce ne sono altri 6.
Fatto colpa mia.
Quindi ci rivediamo, cerchiamo di fare il tutto velocemente.
La faccio
Direi
bollare
massimo,
figa?
massimo dagli 8
La
ai 10
mollo
minuti.
la DJ?
Gli artisti del secondo round sono pregati di andare al tavolo dei colori e riempire le proprie tavolozze e di spingere via quelli che ci sono adesso per dar posto a loro. Chiedo a Sami, Mattias e lo staff di venire in aiuto, grazie.
Our artists are just getting ready for round number 2. We are going to have 6 absolutely phenomenal live painters stepping up to the easels in just a few minutes for our second round. These artists are going to have 20 minutes only on the clock to go from blank canvas to beautiful painting right in front of your eyes. Make sure that you're pre-registered to vote at artbattle.com/AB2438. Round number 2 coming up in just a few minutes.
Al primo numero 1 Olga Timganova, per la prima volta ad Art Battle, pluripremiata pittrice figurativa. Insomma, qui andiamo a vedere cose incredibili. Le sue opere sono state esposte a livello nazionale e internazionale, quindi attenzione a quest'artista. Andiamo avanti, facciamo un bel applauso alla fine poi. Al cavalletto, credo, numero 2, oramai non so più, 2-2, abbiamo una persona che ha già partecipato anni fa e mi fa piacere di averlo con noi, Alvaro Lopez. Stava frequentando l'Accademia di Belle Arti di Firenze, infatti oggi è venuta apposta per Art Battle, l'ho chiamato alle 2 per dirgli dovresti venire. È un anno e mezzo che lì dipinge senza pensare, gli ho detto cosa posso dire di te? Ma guarda, digli che io dipingo senza pensare, quindi oggi dipingerà senza pensare e voi potrete pensare invece quello che vorrete. Intanto sono un po' ciecata. Al cavalletto numero 3, credo, o 4-3, eccolo, Augusto Casarino, oramai il mio portafortuna, perché lui è veramente, se non c'è lui io non faccio Art Battle. Allora, lui dipinge il mondo femminile, lo interpreta come vuole lui, attraverso il suo punto di vista. Usa molto l'olio, ma purtroppo noi qui abbiamo solo acrilico, quindi Augusto Casarino è di nuovo con noi con le sue meravigliose donne. Al cavalletto numero 4 per la prima volta Martina Giovene, amante dei cartoni animati. Martina ama esplorare tutti i tipi di mezzi per quanto riguarda l'immagine. Anche lei usa molto l'acrilico su legno. Martina Giovane, alza la mano così ti vedono dove sei. Fantastica. Cavalletto numero 5 ha già partecipato e ha pure vinto una volta. Carolina Varsi. Tecnica e istinto. Sogna colori e sentimenti. Usa molto le mani per dipingere. Non c'è mai un solo modo di trovare la bellezza. È bello che ognuno vede l'arte in maniera differente. Grazie Carolina per esserci di nuovo. Al cavalletto numero 6 a questo punto è entrata un'ora fa che si era iscritta ma una persona non è riuscita a venire. Per la prima volta anche lei con noi. Harita Asunami, Bulgaria e Tanzania insieme. Alza la mano, per la prima volta con noi. Pittrice, illustrativa, ama dipingere autoritratti, psicologa, ama l'autocoscienza, l'evoluzione personale e sono veramente molto curiosa di vedere questo secondo round. Io direi che se il mio DJ è pronto, se siamo tutti pronti possiamo fare il countdown. 5, 4, 3, ma sono da solo e ci siete anche voi? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, al battle! Secondo round! Parlare un po'.
We have just begun our second round of Art Battle in Genoa today, and we have 6 wonderful artists stepping up to the easels. A few of them have actually painted an art battle before. Right now, we are checking out first-timer, though, Olga, and Olga is getting off to quite the start. We're seeing lots and lots of paint going down on the easels, and it looks like she's having a great time as well. We can see that she is moving to the music that we have in the venue. And we're seeing that she's blending this red into this gray color, and then looks like we have kind of a sky blue going on up top. So already we have these very particular segments happening. And here we are with Harita, and looks like Harita is off to the start of a portrait. I'm starting to see what looks like an eye coming out of this shape here. And perhaps some skin tone as well. Definitely getting the establishment of a face here. And I think right now she's working into a shoulder. Getting some really rapid brushwork from Harita in our first 2 minutes here. Here we are with Carolina Varsi, I believe, and we can see that Carolina is adding lots and lots of paint to the canvas. We have this phthalo green happening right now, and it looks like she is dabbing it off with a sponge. And I think this is going to be a really great technique because it allows for some really interesting textural components to be happening. We're getting varying levels of transparency there. And here we are with Martina. And Martina appears to be creating a figure, potentially. We're getting this kind of peachy color happening here, and we're definitely getting a dominant shape in the center of the canvas, but it's not quite revealed yet what that is going to be. Here we are with Augusto. And Augusto Looks like he's creating maybe a spacey kind of scene. We have a wash of black that's been applied to the background with smaller elements of color kind of dappled in there to create that sense of depth. And then we can see that Augusto is adding in some illustrative qualities over top right now and actually executing some very fine line work with a palette knife. Oh, actually working with a brush now and just kind of drumming that brush across the canvas to get almost like a pointillism style of shading. Very interesting here. And as we're looking at this and seeing the profile of the figure that he's creating, and we're seeing his profile in his actual person, I'm seeing some similarities there. So I'm wondering if this piece is coming from a personal portrait kind of view, a self-portrait, if you will. Here we are with Alvaro Lopez. And Alvaro is definitely working into the figure right now, and we are getting a hand that is reaching forward in space, and that's really difficult to execute in that way. That kind of foreshortening with that forearm and the way that the fingers are held right now. Getting some interesting shading techniques going on as well. Oh wow, some beautiful work from Olga here. This portrait has come together so quickly. I definitely was thinking that Olga was going to be leaning into some sort of landscape because of the way that she had segmented the color in the canvas with that blue up at top. But we're definitely getting into surprise territory here, and this portrait is really coming to life. We're getting such a great expression of luminosity within the planes of the face here. We're really understanding the light source and where those highlights are hitting the face. We have the high points of the forehead, the nose, the cheekbones. Back over to Harita here. And Harita's portrait is now continuing to come to life. We've got some very blended out skin tones. So I'm wondering whether or not we're going to see any sharper contrasts that kind of set these off. Would love to see maybe some dark hair to kind of help outline those and provide some contrast. And looks like we might actually be getting our wish right now. I love when that happens, when I say something on the stream of what we're looking for in a piece that would just improve it, and we get it right away. So exciting. We're getting that darker tone being added into the nose right now. Back with Carolina. And Carolina's piece is just continuing to evolve with all of these just absolutely stunning textures coming together. And she's working well within the same color family of those blues and greens. But then we have a little bit of a curveball component with this more orangey color being applied here and muddying up the green, but muddying it up in this way that is just providing a richness. It's definitely intentional with the color play in this particular instance. Over with Martina here, and we can see that Martina is definitely going into a very illustrative space with this piece, and Martina was someone that I was very much looking forward to seeing paint today. She's a very particular style, something that could be described as being quite illustrative, and also within that kind of lowbrow illustrative quality. When I say lowbrow, I don't mean that in any derogatory way. It's actually an art movement that has a particular aesthetic, and Martina is doing such a great job of owning that aesthetic and creating in a way that is very recognizable. Back to Augusto here. And Augusto, this piece is just providing us with so many different elements. We have kind of this looks like a sand timer. The sands of time running out of this hourglass here in red, and then we have some yellow objects underneath it. I'm not quite clear yet on what that is, but I'm really digging it. And we can see that Augusto is continuing to work into that, what I have to assume is a self-portrait. I'm definitely getting a high level of recognition here. Over with Alvaro. And this piece is so cool. We're getting the sense of the weight of the body, being that it's leaning back a little bit in the shoulders, and then you have the hips coming forward. So to me, that's communicating that we as audience members are almost looking up at this person from a lower point of view. So we have some really interesting drafting techniques that need to happen here to be able to communicate how this figure is moving in space and how we are situated as the viewer looking at it. We have almost an upward view, and then we have all of this foreshortening happening of the body parts coming forward in space, that hand coming forward in space. That is very difficult to do. So a big high five to Alvaro for the way that that is coming together. Olga just doing a really stunning job here. This piece has evolved so wonderfully, and it kind of floors me at this point that this is only a 10-minute piece. These artists have only been going for half of the round, so she still has another 10 minutes to work on this piece. And the way that it's coming together is so it's such a full style of painting. We have so many wonderful points of contrast within the planes of the face and the shadows, and some really wonderful establishment of details starting to happen now. Over with Harita, and we're getting that hair that we were looking for to provide that sense of contrast. And Harita also is an artist who describes herself as doing quite a lot of self-portraits, and I feel like we're starting to see some recognition there as well. Now getting into some saturation points in the clothing of this person, getting into these kind of peachy mauve colors, which are creating a really nice color story with the tones of the skin. And also just a very soft gesture of the head leaning into the hand. Definitely getting a sense of contemplation from this portrait. So quite a few changes have happened since we last visited Carolina, and we're really getting some super cool introduction of textural components into this piece, and just hyper vibrancy and saturation that I don't think that I was expecting. We had this very blended out color story happening with the blues and the greens, and then that orange starting to come in, and now we have these super saturated high points of contrast with that yellow being dragged down from the canvas and being applied with this plastic tool. Very cool to watch. Back with Martina here, and we have this kind of stretching cat with its tail between its legs holding some houses. I'm really into how strange this piece is. Definitely bringing a sense of whimsy into here. And looks like we have some shapes in the eyes as well. I'm seeing some yellow into the eyes. Back with Augusto here. And we're seeing this red sand continue to drip onto these yellow pieces of the canvas. I'm wondering almost if they look like pylons, kind of. Definitely existing in a surreal space, this piece, for sure. Where we're getting all of these different kind of narrative components that are unexpected, but still working together. And Augusto's doing a great job at establishing the translucence of the glass as well. We're seeing that he's using the background color as his mid-tone and then adding in his white highlights and then getting that sense of shine by adding just a little bit more darker black on top of that as well. This piece from Alvaro is coming together really beautifully. We have this color story of mega saturated red feeling very dominant in the canvas, and then a softer blue being applied into the hair, which is really balancing this piece and creating definitely a sense of visual interest. The blended quality that we're getting from Olga here is just so stunning. Olga is, I believe, an oil painter in her studio. And so that is no surprise to me. We're seeing oil painters tend to do a lot of blending on the canvas because the paint stays wet for a longer amount of time. And we can see very much that she's treating this acrylic as if it was oil and doing a lot of her blending onto the canvas. And I think for Olga, a big point of strength within this painting is the way that she started off the piece was quite wet. So it allowed the paint that she's layering over top of that to remain wet and blendable as well. So some advanced techniques there for sure. Back with Harita, and we're now getting that kind of balancing color at the top of the canvas with this almost fluorescent kind of green. And I think that that's a great color play off of the pinkier mauve tones that we have going on in the clothing of the figure. And starting to get a little bit more shape coming into the features of the figure as well. The addition of just a few darker lines into the eyelid of that eye just really help kind of set it off. And Harita also really loves to work in these strong shapes that have a geometric quality to them. We can see that as evident in the hand and that kind of line of the hand leading into the wrist. Back with Carolina here, and we are just continuing to get this textural celebration here. And the way that Carolina has chosen to build this piece is just so interesting to me. And we're definitely witnessing the birth of a very intuitive painting. And it's something that I love to see in pieces that are figurative. We often are kind of expecting where they're going to go next. But with a piece that is as purely abstract as this one is, we just are kind of along for the journey, and unexpected elements at every turn are just dictated by the emotions of the artist. So that's something that I'm really enjoying about watching Carolina's work. This piece is just so much fun, and we're seeing that Martina is adding in some star elements to kind of bring the composition into the negative space of the remaining canvas. And I think that that is really strong and also definitely a very stylized choice. Martina is an artist who has this stylized modality of painting and very specific evidence of hand. And when I say that, what I mean is the weight of line that she uses and the way that she curves her lines. It's very Martina. It's very her and very identifiable. Back with Augusto here, and we are in our final 2 minutes. And this piece just continues to evolve and tell its story to us. We are voting is now live at artbattle.com/AB2438. And you can also participate in the auction at that same link. You don't need to be in the room. We will ship these pieces to you. It's just now occurring to me that potentially this hourglass, the red might be blood, which kind of changes the story of this piece for me a little bit. Adds more of an ominous quality. In our final minute and a half here with Alvaro, and he is executing some very careful brushwork, bringing that red right up against the black line work that he's done to separate the figure from the background. Piece is just undeniable. It is so difficult to comprehend that this is a 20-minute piece. There's so many subtle variations in the skin tone here, and also in the expression of the highlights. Loving that little pop above the lip of our figure here. Moving into our final 30 seconds. And Olga is just looking very relaxed as she adds in these last few detail moments. Second round, a very exciting second round of Art Battle in Genoa. So many different techniques have been displayed here and so many different styles by our artists as well. We had some pieces that were leaning more into the illustrative, like Alvaro's piece right here, and some pieces that were definitely more into that kind of surrealist territory, like this piece by Augusto. And then we had our super painterly portraits happening with Olga, and then portraiture that had a little bit more of a geometric lean to it with Harita. And then, of course, Carolina with her very, very intuitive and texturally celebratory abstract piece, and Martina with her illustrative, lowbrow, character-driven piece of the cat with the hat with the houses on its back. So I think it'll be a very difficult choice for our audience to choose which artists they think should move forward into the final round, but now is the time. Head to artbattle.com/AB2438 to cast your vote. The top two artists from our first round and the top two artists from this round will be moving forward into the third and final showdown, where one winner will be announced at the end of the night after those artists paint again. So stay tuned. We will be announcing the finalists in just a few minutes before we move into round number 3. Our winners will be announced in a few short moments.
Quattro finalisti sono Daniela Vercelli, Luca Siri, Timganova e quindi chiedo per favore a questi quattro artisti di preparare o di mettere qualche colore in più o in meno sulle loro tavolozze e prepararsi al terzo round. Adesso preparo le tele, 2 minuti e siamo pronti.
Our finalists have been announced, and moving forward from round number 1, we have Daniela Vercelli and Luca Siri, and from round number 2, moving forward, is Olga Timganova and Martina Giovene. Very, very exciting. Cannot wait to see these 4 artists competing again. They will be coming back up to the easels in just a few short minutes with fresh canvases and another 20 minutes on the clock. So stay tuned for round number 3 of Art Battle in Genoa. We have just begun our third and final round of Art Battle in Genoa, Italy. And these 4 finalists, I am so excited to see them paint again, each of them with such a unique style. Right now, we are looking at Martina, and it appears that Martina has her initial drawing started on the canvas there already in our first minute. Moving right over to Olga. And Olga seems to be taking a similar approach to her first round qualifying piece, where she laid down quite a lot of paint and color on the canvas to kind of tone out that canvas and have a strong base to paint over top of. Bear with us as we deal with a little bit of connection troubles with our camera on site in Italy. Here we are with Luca Siri, and it appears that Luca is starting the beginnings of what has to be a giraffe, and we're seeing him working in that similar color style to what he was working in his qualifying round, with that beautiful golden brown. Here we are with Daniela, and Daniela has also taken a similar approach to her qualifying round piece, where we're seeing that the initial start of the piece includes the application of these tape lines across the parameters of, or the perimeter of the canvas. And that's a technique that I really, really like from Daniela. It gives the piece a finished quality as soon as she rips those pieces off. And it's also quite performative for the audience as well, and something that I know that I particularly enjoy, getting a nice tape lift and seeing the crispy lines revealed underneath. So Martina working pretty quickly. We're seeing some looks like abstracted shapes right now, but I'm sure that she will be bringing that into some sort of narrative composition as she moves forward in this piece. Back over with Olga, and the way that this portrait is being revealed as she's creating it is just so satisfying. We have some beautiful directionality going on from the hair, and then with that brown that she rubbed into the canvas, we can see that she's using that to create the major midtones within the face. Back over with Luca here, and we can see that Luca is now adding in his background color, and we're seeing this just gorgeous sky blue being applied very opaquely throughout the entire background of this composition. Very careful line work with Luca bringing this blue right up against the skin of his giraffe here. Definitely a risky move, bringing the blue brush right up close like that to his very established sharp line work already, but we can tell that Luca is definitely a pro and knows what he's doing. Moving back over to Daniela, and we're starting to see more elements of texture emerging within this piece. And something that I'm actually finding very satisfying is the way that some of these components of the leaves are actually going out onto the tape. So we're going to be seeing those pulled off when she pulls the tape down. And I feel like that's going to be just this very satisfying reveal of those sharp lines. Almost acting like the perfect crop of this piece. Back over to Martina now. And we're starting to see some elements emerge from the shapes that are present here. Have a little bit of a portrait figure being revealed underneath. Looks like Martina's character has a headdress of some kind, or perhaps that's some really luscious blue hair coming off of it. And once again, just have to admire Martina's use of very, very fine line work. A really careful, steady hand for that. Back with Olga here, and the way that Olga is using color is just so impactful. We have these gorgeous ultramarine tones of blue butted right up against this very warm skin tone here, and it's providing that contrast, and the blue being right beside the red just makes the red even that much warmer. We are just about halfway through our final round of Art Battle in Genoa. You can go to artbattle.com/AB2438 to cast your vote. One artist will emerge the winner tonight. And all four of these artists are putting on just such a wonderful performance. It's so great to see all of the different techniques up at the easel in our final round. Again, with this very careful brushwork from Luca, and Luca really leaning into the color emphasis here within this piece, just creating that contrast between that lovely sky blue and the golden tones that he's chosen for the fur of his giraffe. And we also have the introduction of the pattern on the giraffe's fur, which is also quite difficult to execute, especially being quite small and also maintaining that space between the squares of the pattern. Back with Daniela. And Daniela is just continuing to add and subtract from this wonderful textural celebratory piece. It's very much in the abstract, but we are getting these smaller elements of scratched away pieces that are expressing that this is actually abstracted foliage. And there's so much depth within this piece as well, with all of the layering that Daniela has done. She's so highly engaged with the way that she's creating this piece. You can really see the movement happening in her hand is just, her hand is dancing all over the canvas. Back with Martina and our character slash creature here. Again, some repeated stylistic elements from her first round piece. We can see that the eye is very similar to the cat that she did in her first qualifying round piece. I'm wondering if that is kind of a signature move for Martina, if that's something that she consistently uses across all of the characters that she creates. Over to Olga now, and once again, the level of prowess in painting here is just phenomenal. Olga's ability to express highlights and shadow and midtones within the skin, and also still maintaining this painterly flair, is very interesting and I think very satisfying as well, and something that's going to communicate really well to the audience as a very considered mature style of painting. We have all of these gorgeous kind of painterly elements where the hair is quite loose and where we're getting some texture within the forehead there. That's how she started the painting, toning the canvas and then rubbing it away. And then we have elements of the piece that are much tighter and are expressing more detail and have those little hits of highlight. And I think Olga's talent here really lies in her ability to balance both of those elements, creating very satisfying points of tension and looseness within the composition. Back with Luca here, and we can see that Luca is now adding into his environment. And so this is a great strategy from Luca here. We can really see the considered way that he's chosen to build this piece. He took care of the most important element first, his giraffe painting, and then of course added in the sky and then his midground, and now is adding in the details of the trees in our final 4 minutes. So Luca really knows how to manage the art battle timer, and he definitely is an artist who excels in prioritizing which pieces to approach first, because he understands the risk level of leaving certain big elements to the end, and so he's choosing to leave his details for those final minutes. The satisfaction level of these tape lines from Daniela is just totally undeniable, and just serves to continuously emphasize the texture within all of those marks that she's created, because there's actually different levels of the painting now. We have where the tape was taken away, we can see that these strokes are raised at that line. Very interesting, and a great way to highlight all of the work that she's already done. We are entering into our final 2 minutes of our third round in Art Battle Genoa. Our final 4 artists, our final 4 paintings, and one artist will emerge the winner of tonight's event. And now is nearing the time for you to vote. So head over to artbattle.com/AB2438 and choose your favorite artist and help us choose who will be the winner of tonight's event, and will move forward to represent the city in the regional championships later this season. Moving into our final minute now, and these artists are just adding in those last finishing touches. Oh, this piece by Olga just continues to astound with the level of depth that she's been able to achieve in only 20 minutes. And brushes down. That marks the end of our third and final round. Now is the time for you to vote at artbattle.com/AB2438. One artist will emerge the winner of tonight's event. Will it be Luca with this very well considered and constructed painting of a giraffe? Will it be Olga with her stunning portrait that balances areas of painterliness and areas that are leading more into the realist? Will it be Martina with her character-driven piece? Or will it be Daniela, who created a very texturally engaging work? You decide. The votes are rolling in, and we will be announcing the winner shortly. We often hear from our amazing voting manager, Gina, that the votes are super, super tight. So truly believe that every vote does count. So make sure that you go to artbattle.com/AB2438 and cast your vote and help us determine who will be the winner of tonight's event in Art Battle Genoa. Just a totally stunning output from Olga. This piece has so many wonderful elements working for it, and I think is also different enough from her qualifying round piece that the audience will continue to engage with it. We had a female portrait in our first round qualifying piece from Olga, and now have a male portrait in our second with a much cooler color profile. Luca here establishing this great environment that brings you into that kind of savanna setting. And checking out the final creation from Daniela here, the movement contained within this piece is just so explosive, and you really feel like you could just wade into all of these leaves here. And of course, that clean tape line is just so undeniably satisfying. Over with Martina, and she has just done such a great job at sticking to her style and expressing how she works in her studio and the aesthetic that she achieves within this character. We have all of these dark lines with different curves within them and different weights to the line, and then that highly stylized eye that she does. And of course, working with Olga, and we have this just really contemplative, serene moment with this portrait here. And so many different elements are working within this piece. We have the strength of composition with a fairly centered, but just slightly off center face, and then the weight of the shirt really anchoring the figure in space. Our votes are rolling in, and we are just about to announce the winner of tonight's event in Genoa.
Giulia, devi chiedere a Cristina. Se mi vuoi regalare un quadro, Giulia, io sono contenta.
Buona la birra?
Com'è?
Buona la
Buona,
birra.
bene, bene.
Ok, allora vi chiedo per favore gentilmente qui sotto lo schermo di tutti gli artisti, se possono venire, che hanno partecipato, se potete lasciare spazio qui per favore gli artisti, che vengono qui gli artisti. L'asta chiuderà circa tra un quarto d'ora. Eccoli qua, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Luca c'è? Ci siete tutti? Alzate la mano gli artisti, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9. Chi non è artista si potrebbe spostare gentilmente? Grazie. Vorrei qua solo i 12 artisti. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Non ti si vede, tieni davanti. 10, ne mancano 2. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 2 qua 12, mancano, chi manca? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, ne manca uno. Martina, 6, Daniela c'è, Luca c'è, Olga c'è, ne manca uno, chi è? Carolina, ok, eccola. Ok, allora. Allora, Carolina, è arrivata Carolina. Ok, allora io volevo sapere se vi è piaciuta.
Devi salire su allora.
Se vi è piaciuto questo tipo di arte, perché comunque vedere un artista che dipinge credo non sia una cosa molto molto normale, se ne avete visti 12. Quindi insomma, eccola Carolina, grande. Ora ci siamo tutti, allora un grandissimo applauso a tutti i 12 artisti. Allora, attraverso il Canada mi hanno dato la votazione non è solo una votazione qui sul posto, che vale un punto pieno, chi vota con biglietto eccetera eccetera, ma a Londra, a New York, siamo andati in streaming, i voti valgono un po' meno, uno 0,0 non so, però comunque fanno magari 10 voti, fanno uno, per giustamente dare un po' di vantaggio a chi giustamente ha speso ed è venuto e ha comprato il biglietto. Quindi vincitore della 15ª Art Battle, Olga Timganova! E credo se li meritano veramente tutti, perché dopo 6 minuti aveva già fatto un quadro veramente da veramente tanti. Quindi sarai presente nella finale, sarà, e facciamo veramente un enorme applauso a tutti quanti e vi ringraziamo di essere stati con noi. Abbiamo ancora 10 minuti per l'asta e poi la battle è conclusa. Grazie a tutti, grazie allo staff, grazie a tutti, grazie a Enigma. Grazie a tutti quanti.
The winner of tonight's event in Genoa has just been announced. A huge congratulations to Olga Timganova. A very well-deserved win after the creation of 2 just absolutely stunning and skillful pieces. And of course, a huge congratulations as well to all 12 of our artists that painted tonight and to our wonderful team on the ground in Genoa, Italy. We appreciate everyone that joined us on the stream tonight, and thank you so much. And congratulations again, Olga. We will be seeing Olga painting again at the regional finals happening at the end of this season. So stay tuned to our social media for updates on that. And we will be back on the stream on Saturday for our battle in Portland, Oregon.